This is part 2 of the Book of Thoth, just continuing. I'll read back a line. Chosen was I from the sons of men, taught by the dweller so that his purpose might be fulfilled, purposes yet unborn in the womb of time. Long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever and yet ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to Amenti, the underworld where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death, receiving as my gift the key of life. Free was I from the halls of Amenti, bound not by death to the circle of life. Far to the stars I journeyed, until space and time became as naught. Then, having drunk in the cup of wisdom, I looked into the hearts of men, and there I found greater mysteries, and was glad. For only in the search for truth could my soul be stilled and the flame within be quenched. Down through the ages I lived, seeing those around me taste the cup of death and return again in the light of life. Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been born, Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawn of a lower star. That's very profound. I'll read that again. Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawn of a lower star. That implies that there are kingdoms, many kingdoms of Atlantis, and that something has infiltrated or replaced something. We shall find out. In obedience to the law, the word of the master grew into flower. Downward into darkness turned the thoughts of Atlanteans, until at last in his wrath he arose from his Agwanti, the dweller. And in brackets it says, this word has no English equivalent. It means the state of detachment. Speaking the word, calling the power. Deep in earth's heart the sons of Amenti heard, and hearing, directed the changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the logos until the great fire changed its direction. This sounds like something to do with the inner core of the earth, some type of planetary effects that have affected the rotational tilt of our axis, and some type of electromagnetic effect, and something to consider. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance until only the temple of light was left standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. And this great flood story has been repeated in almost every culture around the world. Happened about 13,000 years ago. If this is the same story, that ended the Ice Age. But I'll continue. Called to me then the Master, saying, gather ye together my people, take them by the arts they have learned of far across the water, until you reach the land of the hairy barbarians, dwelling in the caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. So he's gathered his people and then sent them to keep the knowledge of Atlantis alive by going to each of the four corners of the earth, as far as I've read. And hence we have the stories of these amazing teachers that have arrived in different cultures and taught them civilization and morality. Gathered I then my people and entered the great ship of the Master. And this is interesting. The great ship of the Master. Upward we rose into the morning. It sounds like an ascension, like a flying ship. I'll read that again. Gathered I then my people and entered the great ship of the Master. Upward we rose into the morning. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth until the time appointed was the great temple, implying that it's going to come back or be visible again or be found. Fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Khem. This is Egypt, so it sounds like they're flying over the lands. Raging they came with cudgels and spears lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the Sons of Atlantis. Then I raised my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of the mountain. He's raised his staff, activated some type of beam that has inactivated their ability to move, frozen them in their tracks. It goes on to say, Then spoke I to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were children of the sun and its messengers. Cowed I them by my display of magic science, until at my feet they grovelled when I released them, when he turned the beam off. Long dwell we in the land of Khem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the Master, who while sleeping yet lives eternally. I sent from me the Sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time wisdom might rise again in her children. A long time I dwelt in the land of Khem, doing great works by the wisdom within me. Upward grew into the light of knowledge the children of Khem, watered by the rains of my wisdom. Blasted I then a path to Amenti, so that I might retain my powers, living from age to age a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records. He blasted his way down into what appears to be the centre, towards the core of the earth, where if you approach what he calls the flower of life at the core, it must be some type of radiance that prolongs life. He talks about you need to spend 100 years out of every 1,000 years bathing in this light, which I'll go on to talk about more. But he goes on to say, Great grew the sons of Khem of Egypt, conquering the people around them, growing slowly upwards in soul force. Now for a time I go from among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep in the halls of the earth, beneath the lords of the powers, face to face once again with the dweller. Raised I high over the entrance a doorway, a gateway leading down to Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it, few past the portal to dark Amenti. This is very interesting. Raised over the passage I, a mighty pyramid, using the power that overcomes earth force. Deep and yet deeper placed I in force house or chamber. From it carved I a circular passage, reaching almost to the great summit. There in the apex set I the crystal. And this is important because Sumerian, and if you read Zechariah Sitchin's work, talk about a crystal stone that was the power stone that was placed in the crest of the pyramid. And during a war, when that power stone was removed, Egypt went quiet, implying that its power source got turned off. I'll read that again. There in the apex set I the crystal, sending the ray into the time-space, drawing the force from out of the ether. And this sounds like it's using some type of tetrahedral geometry and physics, and I could digress, but let's just keep moving. Concentrating upon the gateway to Amenti. So I'll read this again. He's placed a crystal in the apex of the pyramid, sending the ray into the time-space. Now this doesn't mean into space, this isn't some sort of compression, drawing the force from out of the ether, which is what we call like the void, concentrating it upon the gateway to Amenti. Very interesting. Other chambers I built and left vacant to all seeming, yet hidden within them are the keys to Amenti. Now, I've been inside the Great Pyramid in 1990, and it certainly does look vacant to all seeming. But here we go, he's saying that he's built it and left it vacant to all seeming, yet hidden within them are the keys to Amenti. Some type of vibrational chamber combined with electromagnetism that might even project someone into some type of astral plane from what I've read, but let's keep going. He who in courage would dare the dark realms, let him be purified first by long fasting. Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber. I've seen that sarcophagus, and I have actually lay in it. Shouldn't have, but I was young. Then to reveal I to him the great mysteries. Now I've heard that if you lie in the sarcophagus and they turn it on, and that interior of the pyramid passages, this is from Sumerian stories, was lined with amazing crystals and gemstones, that it was like a palace on the inside, and that it got smashed and destroyed and removed after the pyramid wars. So go on, he says, soon shall he follow to where I shall meet him, even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him. I, Thoth, Lord of Wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. Built I the great pyramid, patterned after the pyramid of earth force, burning eternally, that it too might remain through the ages. In it I built my knowledge of magic science, so that it might be here when again I return from Amenti. He's built a home that's going to last the millennium, so he can come back to it. I, while I sleep in the halls of Amenti, my soul roaming free will incarnate, dwell among men in this form or another. And then it's got in brackets, the Hermes thrice born. You can Google that and learn more about it. Emissary on earth am I of the dweller. He's an emissary on earth, fulfilling his command so man might be lifted. Now return I to the halls of Amenti, leaving behind me some of my wisdom. Preserve ye and keep ye the command of the dweller. Lift upward and upward your eyes toward the light. Surely in time ye are one with the Master. Surely by right you are one with the Master. Something to do with birthrights. Surely by right you are one with you all. Now I depart from thee. Now my commandments, keep them and be them, and I will be with you, helping and guiding you into the light. Now before me opens the portal. Go I down into the darkness of night. He descends into some type of portal, and I'll continue in a moment.